What are we going to get into today? Well, today's video, it's geared toward, I don't know, maybe not the beginner, but to somebody that's investigating this hobby, you know, wants to learn a little bit. Do they want to get into this hobby of home distilling? You know, just kind of checking it out. So I'm hoping this will help them make the decision. We'll give them a few of the facts to help them make the decision. Hey, is this hobby for me or not? Alright, but first, welcome to Stillworks and Brewing. My name is Randy and this is a channel that's all about home distillation and brewing. Alright, so if you are checking out this hobby, one of the first things you can do is hit that subscribe button down there so you don't miss anything. We like to come out with a lot of different videos to try to help everybody out. And so yeah, you can hit that subscribe button down there, and you might as well hit that notification bell. That'll notify you when something new comes out. Share us with your friends, give us that thumbs up, and please leave a comment and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. I guess first we need to ask some questions, okay? If that's what we're going to do. Okay, well, the very first question that always comes up is home distilling legal? Well, on the federal level in the United States, it is legal in different parts of this world. I don't know all of them, but I do know, like in New Zealand, it's legal in New Zealand. I'm going to mainly talk here in the States because I know. At the federal level, it is not. It is not a legal thing to do. There is some movements. There is, if I understand right, there is a couple states. It's kind of like the marijuana thing where the states are not paying attention to the federal government. I do know there's a few states that it is legal. I don't really know which ones they are, to be honest with you. I think it's West Virginia, and somebody can help me out. There's another southern state that it is legal. That I think that's true, okay? But don't quote me on that. But overall, it's not legal. I think it's stupid, but that is what it is. Hopefully they will change it. I mean, it took them how many years to change the marijuana laws? So, it is coming. Alright, so next question. Is it expensive to get started? Well, that's a tricky question there. It's in what you want to make it. You can build your own still. Well, let's start big at the beginning. To do the ferments, to make the mashes and all that, it's not all that expensive. It's like I said, it's all in what you want to make it. I mean, you can go hog wild, or you can be really conservative and make your own still, or whatever your case may be if you're handy with your hands. If not, you can buy a still, and that price range, it's all over the place. I mean, you buy one of them cheap stills for $100 on up to whatever you want to spend. So the answer to that question is yes and no. You have to do some research and see what your budget is good for you. Okay? Alright, the learning curve. Well, it is a learning curve to learn how to distill. But if you take your time, learn from your mistakes, and we all make mistakes. I don't know anybody out there that hasn't scorched something in their stove pot. And let me get back to that. Pretty much anything that you do in this hobby is you can recover somehow from, except for scorching in your pot. If you squirt something in your pot, it just ruins it and you can't get that taste out for nothing. So the learning curve is steep. But you know what? There's a lot of information out there online that you can get to help you out. And I think who said it? I think it was Cyrus over at Still in the Clear said, "Learning by doing," and that is 100% true. You learn as you do it. That was a great quote. Thanks, Cyrus. Yes. Like I said before, the learning curve is steep, but you can handle it. So don't let that hold you back. Okay. Next question that I get: what can you make at home? Well, you can make anything that you want. You can make your rums. You can make your bourbons. You can make all different kind of whiskeys. You can make vodkas. What am I missing? Brandies, tequilas. Well, the rule for tequila is if it ain't made in a certain part of Mexico, you can't call it tequila. But you know what? If I want to call it tequila, I'm going to call it tequila. What else? Anything that is made, you can make at home, and sometimes you can make it better. Okay? So, the answer to that is everything. Well, next question. Will I go blind? I'm going to say no. Okay, what that come about, if I understand history right, back when people were really doing that in the woods and they were making massive amounts of alcohol, and you're taking your 4 shots and heads off, and that's where your methanol and all that is, they were putting it in a bottle, and people would go blind by drinking too much methanol. Have you ever drank methanol before? Well, if you've had a beer and or a glass of wine, you have drank methanol. It's in there. Now, the quantities are very, very low, and usually, well, if I understand it right, that's really mainly what gives you the hangovers, because they're nasty chemicals. Methanol is a part of fermentation. It's a natural thing that comes through during fermentation. It's more in the fruits mashes than the all grain mashes. You know, so the reason we take, so when we start distilling, the methanol and the bad chemicals usually come off at a lower temperature than the alcohol. So we collect that off first, because it comes off first, and that is what they consider 4 shots and heads. Well, we like to get rid of it because it tastes like crap. So why would we want to put it into our product? So the reason we get rid of it is because we can. In wine or beer, we can't get rid of it, and so it is put in into your final product. In distilling, we get rid of it because we can. So, unless you drink massive amounts of methanol and them other chemicals, you will not go blind. All right. Where do we get our supplies at? Well, that's a great question. You can get supplies all over the place. So if you're doing, let's say, a brandy, and it's apple season, you can make an apple brandy. You just, get all the apples together, or some type of berry or banana, or so that would be your brandies. If you're making, I've made whiskeys all from bread. I had a bunch of leftover bread from something, and I made a whiskey out of it. It tasted pretty darn good too. Now, a lot of your grains, I know here in the States, there is homebrew stores all over the place. So you can get a lot of your grains from there. Bourbons, they usually a lot of corn. So I usually go to a farm supply store and I buy bags of corn, and relatively inexpensive. So you can get some of your multi-grains from the homebrew store. You can get some of your corn or whatever you want from your farm store, combine it all together, and that's where you get your supplies. So you're just going to gather them up from all over. Okay. Let's see, what's the next question? can you make products as good as you can buy? 100%. I've made, I'll put it this way. I've gave people a bourbon and they asked me, is that Woodford's? Well, Woodford's is one of my favorite bourbons, and I'll take that as one giant compliment that they compared mine, not knowing what it was, and thought it was store brand, you want to call it, the higher guys. So yes, you can make stuff that is as good or better. Now, to be honest, sometimes you're going to make something, you're going to try a little experiment, and it might not be as good as you'd liked it to be, but I haven't had anything undrinkable yet. I've made some stuff that was, I won't do that again, but it was still drinkable and still enjoyable. And if it's really bad, you redistill it, okay? All right, so the answer to that is yes, you can make something as good or better than commercial. Oh, so what's it? All right, now here's a tricky question. Time. How much time does it take? Well, this question, what I'm going to go through is each process in making spirits, and I'll give you a roundabout time frame of what it takes, okay? So, if you're still with us right now, we'll answer some more questions as we go through each process. Process number one, like we said, making a mash or a wash. I guess first you want to ask, what the hell's the difference? Okay, the best way I can explain it, this is the part where we, we get sugars in a couple different ways, right? The first way is, let's say, a mash. And this is my opinion. I've read different ways and different explanations. In my opinion, a mash is where you're trying to get sugars from grains by converting the starches in them grains into fermentable sugars. All right, that is my opinion. You might have a different one. You might read something different. A wash, in my opinion, is where you're taking, let's say, molasses, or you're making a rum. You're taking sugars and molasses, which already has the sugars there, and you're trying to wash them out and to ferment them, right? So, in my opinion, or you got natural fruits, that would be considered a wash. Don't get hung up in that. It really is not that terminology. You'll see a lot of the terminology in this hobby, they'll go different ways, but that's my opinion. I'm sorry. All right. What do I like? I usually like, whenever I get my mash or wash done, I like to end up, all right, let me back up. Specific gravity tells me how much sugar that I have in that liquid, that mash or wash that I made. And the very, very important number, Okay, I like around 1.080 to 1.090. That just works great for me. Okay, so what tool? Well, time. So how long does it take to make a mash or a wash? Well, that varies. I usually try to allot somewhere in the neighborhood of, like I said, if you're making something from, let's say, like a rum, it's usually a little bit fast, but let's go with the longer process, which is the mash, where you're converting the grains over to sugars. The whole process, I found it usually takes me right around 5 hours for a 6-gallon mash, okay? And it can be a little bit more or a little bit less. So, but 5 hours is a good number. What tools do we need for that? Well, number one, you're going to need a brew pot because you're always heating water. I use a 10-gallon pot for me, and it usually does plenty of room for me. So I use a 10-gallon pot. You need something to stir with. I got a long spoon or a mash paddle, whatever it takes. You have something to stir with. Now here is the next. It's a little bit on the whatever you want to do. I like to use a mash tun, T-U-N. And what I use is a 10-gallon drink cooler. It's because it's insulated, and I can make my mash in there. It holds the heat, because part of the processes is you got to hold heat at close to certain temperatures to make certain things happen. Like if you wanted to cook corn, you could either boil the corn, or I put it in a mash tun with boiling water, and it makes it over 190 degrees, and I can get those starches extracted out of that corn. Then once you mix your grain in, once you want to mash in, and you're putting your grain to help convert those starches, you need somewhere around 143 to 153, I think it is. Don't quote. So you want to try to hold that temperature so that the enzymes can do their job. And what them enzymes are doing is converting that starch over into sugars that the yeast needs. So I use a mash tun. Now, can you put it in a barrel with certain temperature water and wrap a blanket around it and try to insulate it? Well, sure you can. And it works just fine. I know a lot of people do it that way, and it works just fine. Just remember, there's only a few rules that you have to abide by, but pretty much anything else is up to you. It's going to be your own process. Like I said before, enzymes will do things at certain temperatures. That's the rules. But how you do it sometimes, that's strictly up to you. There's no wrong answer. So, what's another tool that you have to have? Hey, a hydrometer. You got to have a specific gravity hydrometer, because without that, you really don't know your starting point. You need your starting point, and they're not very expensive. If you got the glass one, I suggest 2 of them so you don't break one, because if you got 2, you won't break them. If you got 1, you will break it. All right, I use the glass hydrometer, and I also use a specific gravity refractometer. Both of them are not very expensive. I like the refractometer because you don't have to take very large of samples, just a few drops. But later in the next step, it won't do you no good, and you need a glass. So worst case there, you can work with everything with the glass one, or you can have both. I like both. All right, next. You need to check your pH. I've been guilty of not always doing that. That's my bad. But overall, you need something to check pH. A pH meter is very inexpensive, or even less. You can get the pH strips. They're even less. All right, so you can go that route. But it's very important. And the next thing I got is a thermometer. You do need to know the temperature of certain things. All right, and all this stuff is that learning curve that we talked about before. So yes, thermometer is very important in my opinion. Well, I think it is, no matter what. You can either use a glass thermometer or the instant reads, like the ones with a metal probe that are a lot faster, like a meat thermometer, whatever you want to call it. they work fantastic. Okay? I know this is a lot of yakking, but I hope you do get something out of it. So let's continue on. Process number 2, fermentation. What is fermentation? The very short answer is fermentation is once you've made your mash, you're going to introduce yeast to it. The yeast eats the sugar and it produces alcohol and CO2 gas. All right? In my system, when I do a fermentation, it usually lasts somewhere between 5 and 10 days. I usually say 7 to 10 days, but I will say 5 to 10 days. All right. It's very fascinating to watch and see how it works. I have a room that I have it temperature controlled. It's just a closet, and I put my ferments in there, and I keep it set at about 76, 78 degrees, and it works out very well for me. But depending on where you live and what your temperatures are like, some people put it down in a basement where it's a little bit cooler, or in a room that's cooler or warmer. That's just something you would have to experiment with. All right, one question I always get is, okay, so I've made my mash, and the starting gravity, now this is like where it comes important to have that starting gravity, and I've had people ask me, well, I've had this problem, what was your starting gravity? Well, I didn't take it. Well, it's hard to figure out what went wrong unless you have all the information. So try to get in the habit of always getting a starting gravity. Good rule. Okay, so I started off saying with 1.080. It fermented out. I checked it with a hydrometer, the glass one, and it could, let me back up a little bit, and this is a lot of information. Throw it out there. I hope it don't mess you up. Remember our refractometer I told you about I use, and you can see it in my videos. Once alcohol is in the liquid, it's not usable anymore. It just, the reading will be off, so you use a glass one. Okay, go back. I put hydrometer in the ferment, and it says 1.000 or 0.999. Hey, I know for a fact that it's done fermenting. It's only been 5 days. That's okay. Yeast did its job. All right, it ain't going to do no more because all the sugar is gone. The yeast ate it and made alcohol. Well, how much alcohol do I got there? Great question, and you can figure it out mathematically. Okay, so if you take your starting gravity minus your final gravity times that number by 131.25. I don't know how they came up with that number, but that's what it is. It will equal your ABV that's in that ferment. Easy, right? It is easy. That's why it's such a great hobby. Because if I can do it, anybody can. Okay, fermenting. Let's talk time. The time to ferment, well, time for me to actually be doing anything is almost nothing. It's there doing its own job, you know. It takes, like I said, say 7 to 10 days, but I don't have to do anything. You come out and look at it every once in a while just to make sure. Like I use buckets, and I usually put a lid on it with a airlock. I just like to see the activity going on, and I know it's working good. Okay, so there's not much for me to do at that time. All right, so what tools do you need? Well, you're going to need something to ferment in. You can either ferment in a barrel, or you can ferment in glass. They call it carboys, you know, the 5-gallon or 6-gallon carboys. Or you can use the 5-gallon fermentation buckets with the lid on it, right? And the reason I keep the lid on it is just to keep stuff out of it, right? I always like to have it covered up. So you need something like that. Again, you can spend what you want to spend, or you can find what you can find. Alright, so you're going to need a thermometer. Alright, and like I said before, you're going to need a hydrometer, right? Which a lot of these tools are used in different processes. So, but that is what you need. And then to get the, what I use to get it out of the bucket into my still pot is I use an auto siphon. Why? Because I like to siphon it off the top and leave all the junk behind. You know what I mean? I like the cleanest mash going into my still pot as I can, because if you have solid particles in there, you take it more of a chance on scorching, and that's one thing we don't want. Alright, so auto siphons, I've had the same one for I don't know how many years, and I don't think it was that expensive either. Now, you can go on anywhere, your homebrew shops, and you can go on Amazon, you can go wherever you need to go to find these prices at, because everybody in the world's different. Alright? So that's fermentation. Alright, so we're halfway done. Ooh. Process number 3, distillation. Now, this is probably one of the, how am I going to put this? This probably has the largest learning curve about it, because I'm willing to bet a lot of people that are looking to get into the distilling hobby, like myself, a lot of people were already homebrewing beer and wine. So a lot of the first two processes you might already know. So this one is distillation. Alright, I got to put a couple things out there first. Number one, a still does not make alcohol. It does not. It can't. You can only make alcohol during the fermentation process. Okay? The short answer is, what is a still used for? It is used to separate water and alcohol. Okay? That's what its job is. It separates water from alcohol. So, and how does it do that? Well, the short answer is you got a pot, you got either it's closed on top, and you either got in my case I use a column, so I heat the mash inside that pot. Okay, couple rules. Water boils at 212 degrees, and depending on altitude, but let's say 212. But alcohol boils at, or vaporizes at 174, right around there. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to heat that liquid up over 174, but below 212. So my idea of what I want to be happening is I want that alcohol vapor to be coming up the column, and then coming out the column to my condenser, which is cooled, and it takes that vapor, turns it back into a liquid, and I'm collecting it. Okay. In a normal column still or a pot still, and I don't want to get into that right now, is it's very hard. There's ways of doing it, like a bubble plate, whatever. That's not getting into that. It's very hard to get 100% pure alcohol, because when that alcohol molecule is going up the column, it's hanging on to a couple water molecules with it. Okay, and there's processes and all that stuff to help up that ABV. Anyway, not right now. So when it comes out, say you're at 140 proof, well, that's 70% alcohol and the rest of it's water. But where's the flavor come in for your bourbon? Well, it's in that water. So that's your flavor, right? I mean, if like vodka, you know, you want it to come off the still as the highest proof that you can get. The trade-off is, which I love vodka, don't get me wrong, there's not much flavor, and that's the way it's designed. not much flavor. So anyway, whew, I don't want to get off too far. So, how much time? But that's the basic. Let me back up. That's the basics of how a still works. By rules, it's very simple, but there's a lot of art to it, and that is a later video. That is part of the learning curve. There's art to it and all that good stuff, and there's a lot of science in it. It's great. It's the funnest part of this hobby, I think. Anyway. Okay, time. How much time do I allot? Okay, well, that's varies a lot. In my case, like I said, I use 8 gallon still. I usually do 6 gallons of a mash. I better allot from the time I start to the time I'm done cleaning up. It's usually 5 to 6 hours. That's just long and short, 5 to 6 hours. All right. Tools. What tools do I need? Well, this is a big one. All right, you need some kind of heat source. Me myself, I do like a combination thing. I love electric. I only have 110 volt available to me here, so what I run everything 110 volts. In the very beginning, I'll put a low fire under the still pot of propane and the electric to get it up to close to distilling temperature. Then I'll kill the gas, and then I run strictly off electric. Alright, so you need that type of heating source. Of course, you need a still. Like I said before, there's many options there. You have to do a little research for that. They all work. Some work better than others. A lot of people like copper. That's great. I'm a firm believer in stainless steel, and the biggest reason because it's easy to clean. Copper takes a little bit of work to keep clean, but stainless steel, I feel it's easy to clean. I'll usually put copper inside the column, but that's replaceable. Okay, so you need some type of still. You have to do research. I would like to do a video about all the different types of stills. Maybe we'll do that sometime. But you're going to need some type of cool water. Okay, you're either going to have to run it off your whatever way you can run water, or you have a container full of ice water where you can recirculate it, but you do need a amount of cold water to keep the condenser cool so that you can keep producing alcohol. Alright, next thing. You're going to need a proof in trails hydrometer. Proof trails hydrometer looks just like a regular hydrometer, except it's going to measure the amount of alcohol. Usually you'll see on there, there's a few different scales, but you'll see on there proof would be from 0 to 200, or alcohol by volume is going to be from 0 to 100. Same thing. Alright, me myself, and this is my opinion, I also use an ABV refractometer. I've grown to love it because the samples, it's easy. I like to check right off the spout as it's coming out, and that's just me. There's many different ways of doing it. For the price of them, I think they're worth every dime. They're not very expensive. And along with the refractometer, an eyedropper. Yeah. And of course you need some jars to collect in. Alright? So that's the short answer for distilling. Alright. We got couple different processes left and we're done. Okay, let's move. We're moving along. Alright. Process number 4. Blending and proofing. What is it? Well, blending and proofing, we've already got rid of foreshocking and heads. That's in the beginning of the run. Gone. Then at the very end is tails. Usually tails is, you're at the end of the run and you're getting more water and you're getting some fossil oils and undesirable stuff. Sometimes you even see it start clouding up in that last jar. I will say that's good alcohol. Don't throw it away. A lot of people put that what they call in their faints jar, and they'll collect it and they'll throw it in a different run, and try to rerun that part again. So, all right. So I've tasted everything. I decided this is what I want to keep. All right, and this is what I'm going to keep, and we're going to blend it together. What do I use? I use a large, it's a pickle jar is actually what it is. I got a few of them. And they usually hold about a gallon, and sometimes I got to use 2 of them. All right, but I just call them my mixing jars. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to blend that all together, and then taste it, right? And everything's good. Okay, so now here's the school of thought. A lot of people, everybody does, like I said, a lot of people do things different. Nobody's wrong, nobody's right. All right, I like to proof down to my drinking proof, or ABV. I like 80 proof. That is just me. Now, sometimes on, let's say, a corn liquor, I like 100. But bourbons and stuff like that, whiskeys, I like 80. Personal preference. It's whatever you like. Okay. So I use just, I always have, I always use bottled water to proof down. Some people say that you got to add the liquor to the water, and you can't add the water to the liquor. Some people say it's all over the place. I haven't had no problem. If it clouds up, that means that you got a little bit of tails in it. You got a little bit too much tails. There's that learning curve again, right? So, but don't let that discourage you at all. All right. So, what time do you need for this? This is actually relatively quick. It usually only takes less than an hour. You're tasting and you're mixing. It looks like a chemist. Anyway, it don't take very much time. What tools do you need? Well, like I said, you need a proof and trails hydrometer or a refractometer. You need a large mixing jar, something to mix in. Like I said before, I use a large pickle jar, and I use bottled water. Okay, so that one is pretty easy. So we're getting ready to do the last process in my mind. Okay, last one. Process number 5, aging. Now, of course, on vodkas, this process don't apply, or other things you make, your rums and stuff. Yeah, aging. Sometimes you age rum, but sometimes you don't. I do like to let things before, even vodka, I like to set for a little while to get all the. Even though vodka don't have much flavor, it does have flavor, and you like it to mingle together. So anyway, but really what we're talking about on aging is bourbons, whiskeys, stuff like that. Brown spirits. Okay. Aging is just like it sounds. Okay. And as a home distiller, we have a few different methods of aging. Number one, if you got all your pickle jar, and you got it full of the spirits to the proof that you like, you could put in there oak chips. You seen toasted oak chips? I've done that. It works out very well. You could put toasted or charred oak sticks. I've done that, and if you can see right here, in this bourbon here, it's got. I used oak chips, and then just to give it a little bit more, I'll put oak sticks in it in the bottom. Just your personal preference. Or, see, most of the time at home, so we can't fill, you know, the 50 gallon barrel, but we can, those mini barrels, they work pretty good. The only thing I don't like about the mini barrel is the angel share is pretty intense. So you really got to keep an eye on them. But they do make a good barrel aged liquor. Now here's the tough question: time. Time. Actually, what I normally do, if I'm making, you know, just a aged liquor and I'm using chips, I'll put the chips in, and there's different amounts you want to use. I don't want to get into that right now. You can put the chips in there, and you can watch it. It will change rather fast. And I guess depending how much you put in, and usually, I don't know, a month or so, about a month, I'm about ready to get off. I'll taste it, and when it tastes where I like it, I'll strain the chips off and put it in bottles. Sometimes I'll put a stick inside the bottle just because of what I want to do. Now, if you're putting it in a mini barrel, that normally 1 to 2 months, around about. But you best keep sampling and keep an eye on it. I think the last one I did in the mini barrel, I think it was just like a month and a half, and it came out nice. So there's all different kind of age, different times for that. That's going to be up to you, and I hate to say it again, there's part of that learning curve. There ain't no really good answer on this one, except for tasting. Taste it, and once it's where you like it, it's done. All right. I just like to get back to. I mean, I love this hobby. That's one reason I started doing the channel, because I love this hobby and I wanted to get a little bit of information out there. I hope I do the right information. It is the best I understand. You can make some great products. Yeah, look beautiful. Or you can go a little bit wild products, right? Don't they look cool? There's so much you can do and experiment with. Is it always going to work? No. But I like to think most of the time it does. Just some things are better than others. I just hope you got one thing out of this video. If you're really checking this hobby out, my opinion is a great hobby, and you can really get a lot of satisfaction out of this hobby. There is nothing like when you give a friend of yours, hey, here's some bourbon, have a bourbon with me, and they just love it. Hey, makes you feel good. Anyway, so like I said, I just hope you got one thing out of this video, and you want to, hey, make what you like and like what you make. Okay? So, that's a lot of yakking, but I think the last thing I got to say is, hey, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you next time here on Stillworks and Brewing. Cheers, everybody.